Hello and welcome everyone. It's great to be back with you for the 26th episode of our Lunch and Learn series. 26 episodes.
That's awesome.
We are here today with Emily Fairfax, Assistant Professor of Environmental Science and Resource Management at California State University Channel Islands, whom I'll introduce in full in a minute. We hope that you ask questions, receive value, and walk away with real solutions to real problems. Today's focus of real problems are on climate action and restoration. This is very exciting. I am Kristen Hazard. I am the founder and CEO of WildNote. I'm a tech nerd that loves nature. And WildNote is an environmental consulting platform allowing you to handle more projects without adding more people, resulting in higher quality deliverables and more profitable projects. My co-host today is Nancy Douglas. Yeah, you all know her if you've worked with us because she's the one that keeps you happy. If you have not completed the poll yet, please take a moment to fill it out. Those are very helpful for us. And now I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. Dr. Fairfax, what a powerhouse. We are so lucky to have her here today. As I said earlier, she's the Assistant Professor of Environmental Science and Resource Management at California State University Channel Islands. Shout out to the Cal State system. I went to Cal Poly, got a great education. She also holds an adjunct assistant professor position in the Department of Watershed Sciences at Utah State University. So I love this story. She's been passionate about science since 3. Her first journey into science was to walk and study the rings of Saturn. And she told her mom, don't worry, because she'll bring a car seat. Though she did not do that dream. She's not with Elon going out in space. Her passion for scientific discovery and exploration is not abated. Ultimately, her interest fell less with what is happening on other planets and more with understanding the physical processes that govern our own Earth. Lucky us. Her current research focuses on the eco-hydrology of riparian areas, particularly those that have been impacted by beaver damming. She uses a combination of remote sensing, modeling, and field work to understand how beaver damming changes these landscapes and on what timescales those changes operate. She also has interest in geoscience, education research, and curriculum development. When not doing research or teaching, she enjoys hiking, running, yoga, camping, playing board games, and video games. Right on, Emily, welcome.
Thank you. Super happy to be here.
Do you like backgammon?
I don't. I like more strategy and RPG style games.
That's one of my favorite games. So as you all know who have been here before, we love to start out with the stories from the field segment. So Emily, what you got in terms of funny, scary, wonderful experience out in the field?
So I've gotten to beaver ponds quite a bit, and beaver ponds are kind of unique in that the bottom of the pond, even if you can't see it, is really variable sort of topography. There's lots of little holes and canals the beavers are scooping out on the bottom. And I like to think myself like pretty well versed in beaver pond traversing. So I was helping one of our rafts. We were going out onto the pond and rafts get sort of launched, and I was walking into the pond and pushing it out. In my waders, like, oh, whatever, it's like hip deep, I'm totally fine. And then like with 1 minute of not being on my game, and I step right into the deepest hole, and I go from walking in like hip deep water to swimming, and I'm like holding onto the edge of the raft. I'm like, I need you to paddle it backwards. Like I can't touch here. And I didn't want to fill up my waders with water because then I'd be soggy the rest of the day. And it just felt a little bit silly because usually I'm like warning people, like, watch where you step, you're going to go straight into a hole.
There she goes.
And then it was me just straight in. Glad I was able to grab the raft. It would have just been, whoop, there I go forever.
My goodness.
That is a very deep pond.
Yeah, a lot of these ponds, like the average depth is probably going to be like 3-ish feet, but there's absolutely going to be scour pools that are 5, 6, 7, 8 feet. I'm 5.5 feet tall, so it doesn't take that deep of a pool to be over my head.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So second segment is our problem solve segment. And I think we can just focus on the beavers in general. What problem do beavers solve for us?
What problem don't they solve for us? Beavers do so many different things just by going about their everyday lives as beavers. They're a keystone species, so they create ecosystems that completely depend on them to be there. They make these wetlands, no matter whether you're like in an urban area or in a desert or in the forest or the mountains. And these wetlands, they provide a lot of ecosystem services, so things that they provide that actually benefit us as people. My research and interests are mostly focused on how they can create patches of the landscape that are resistant to both droughts and wildfires, increasingly problematic things, especially out here in California where I am, and we're cruising through this heat wave barely. You know, they're doing all of this work to create these stable habitats, which is super important for fish and frogs and birds and small mammals and all these other creatures that are also trying to live through heat waves and through droughts and through fires. And sort of the overarching problem there, I guess, that beavers are solving for us and that I'm helping to understand is how can we keep like the landscape intact and healthy during continuously changing climates and as things sort of spin out of our control. We're really worried about our own infrastructure, our houses, our roads, and everything like that, rightfully so. So how are these beavers going to take a little bit of that work off of our plate and take care of it for us?
Just by doing what they do, right?
Just by doing what they do.
Can a beaver fix any landscape or stream?
Just about. I mean, there's definitely, it's not like everything is equally easy for them. They have preferences like any animal does about where they want to live. They like shallower gradient streams. They don't want to be on super steep streams. They really like having willow or aspen or cottonwood nearby. Those are their favorite food trees and favorite building materials. They like to have a good source of year-round water. They don't like to be by people. And even with all of these like things they like, there's beavers in Colorado that are living at 12,500 feet. They're above the tree line. They're in an incredibly hostile environment.
Wow.
There's almost no food. They're under snow 9 months of the year. There's beavers down in San Jose, which are absolutely next to people, and it's not a healthy river. There's beavers in the Mojave Desert, which is way hotter than they would prefer.
Whoa.
There's beavers on mountain streams that are like a 20% grade, way steeper than they like, and they just move in and they deal with it. It's hard to know exactly why a beaver chooses where it chooses when they go outside of their sort of known preferences. Like, why did you choose to go dam up the Mojave River when you could have been in the Sierras? Like, what was it that was good? Was it just open habitat? Was it that maybe being by the people helped in that regard because the people also wanted to keep the water there and they were protecting it? Really hard to say.
Or there was like a beaver fight and they had to bail out of their beaver community.
Yeah, they are very territorial. So definitely, I think some of it is just getting a little bit further away from the next family.
Yeah, right. Very interesting. Now, when the Mojave example, did they turn it into a bit of an oasis, or is that just too difficult?
Yeah, it's a huge wetland. Goes right through Victorville. If you know where that is, east of the Sierras, down in the desert. The Mojave River flows through that area, and it's just chocked full of beaver dams, and there's lots of frogs and birds that hang out there. A wetland, and then as soon as you're out of it, like desert.
Wow.
That's interesting. I have a question. You were featured in an article that was in the New York Times yesterday, I think, or the day before, talking about ranchers and it seems like a bit of a turnabout that ranchers are actually starting to welcome beavers onto their land. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's been in some ways like the most unexpected ally that beavers have from, I mean, probably not from the ranchers' perspective, but from a lot of people's perspectives. Ranchers, they want to have reliable water for their livestock, whether that's cows or goats or sheep or whatever. And there's a lot less water in the West than there used to be. And every year it feels like there's less and less. And so a lot of ranchers have started thinking outside the box about how can I make my landscape more resistant to all of these different disasters, the droughts, the floods, the fires, because I need to keep my herds healthy, and that's getting harder. and more expensive. And then as beavers start to sort of naturally find their way onto these ranch properties, a lot of the ranchers notice like, wow, suddenly I have a ton of water and there's these ponds that I didn't have to build and I didn't have to get permitted because a beaver built it. And this is very useful for me. And then that word kind of trickles out through the community, like one rancher telling his buddy or her buddy about what happened on their property, and then it just sort of propagates. And now there's these ranchers that are extremely vocal advocates for restoring rivers and partnering with beavers, because there's this outstanding sort of balance and symbiosis of beavers making beautiful wetlands that mitigate floods and droughts and fires, and cows having enough food to not just die.
So the water's there, it's just flowing down to the ocean eventually, and the beavers are just providing a storage mechanism for water that is actually there.
Yeah, it's the same amount of water coming through. It's just a lot of the time the water, like you were saying, it just sort of cruises straight through, especially in these really degraded river systems. There's nothing to slow it down. There's not plants. The channel is like a little straight line. It's like a pipe, basically. So the water comes through and it's gone in a couple of weeks. But when you have the beavers, they're building their dams. Each dam is kind of like a speed bump that slows the water down a little bit and gives it time to seep out into the soil. And then once it's in the soil, it's on a much slower pathway, and it'll still be making its way downstream, and it'll come into the stream and go back into the soil, back and forth. And that, I mean, you could delay it for months or even years if you're really recharging your groundwater there. And so you just have access to the water when you otherwise wouldn't. So it's the same like spring snowmelt that comes through. You just have it stored so that you can tap into it in August, where the people who have those really narrow degraded streams, they lose access in June.
That is so cool.
Go ahead.
No, please, Nancy. Yeah.
Well, I'm imagining you did ask a question in the poll, I think, Kristen, about people doing restoration, and I'm guessing we got quite a few yeses for the crowd that's here right now. What advice can you give to these folks for how to integrate the concepts that you're working on into their restoration process and into their projects that they're working on?
Yeah, so for people doing river restoration, if you have beavers in the sites that you're working on, like you hit the jackpot, congrats. What an outstanding partner to do some work for you if you just let them. If you don't have beavers, or you want to attract beavers, or you just want to sort of mimic some of those benefits, you can do what's called low-tech process-based restoration, where you use materials that are locally sourced, like really locally. Like you're restoring this stream, get a tree from right over there and throw it into the river and make a little bitty sort of disturbance in that river to slow it down and force it to try to be a little more complex. There's structures you can build. There's beaver dam analogs, which are human-built fake beaver dams. They're called PALs, post-assisted log structures. You can make engineered log jams. Really, there's lots of ways to just try to introduce some of that complexity and make the stream not so simple and narrow and a lot more hydrologically and geomorphically complex. If you're building beaver dam analogs and there are beavers nearby, just know that those beavers might come and try to take them over. They do like to do that, especially when they go off to be their own beaver for the first time, leaving their families. They see these beaver dam analogs and they're like, wow, what a terrible beaver dam. It must be abandoned. I can fix this up and make it my home. So they do give us a little bit of judgment on that, but ultimately it's good. Like, we're not beavers as much as we might want to be. And then the other thing is, if you have beavers and you like a lot of the stuff they're doing, but maybe there's a few places where their dam building is flooding a road, or they're about to chew down somebody's like favorite almond tree, there are ways to handle that. We have lots of engineering techniques ourselves. Beavers aren't the only engineers. So, you can install pond levelers, which is basically like a big black pipe through the dam at the level that you want the pond to be at. Beavers can build all they want. It's not going to raise higher than that pipe level, so you're controlling the pond. So we can sort of compromise with them as well, instead of just being like, uh-oh, they flooded the road, better destroy this beaver dam and kill the beavers or move them somewhere else. There are definitely ways to coexist where it's not like 100% give it up to the beavers, but also not 100% take back control.
I'd like to ask our participants if anyone has had luck with these processes, if they could tell us what they've had the most luck or success with in our chat feature. That'd be really interesting, just to see what you guys all have going on with this sort of stuff, or if you're looking to learn about it to utilize it in your work. That'd be cool to hear.
We do have a question, actually, kind of a good segue from Beatrix Jimenez Helsley. Sorry if I slaughtered that a little bit. What creek are the beavers present in San Jose, and how is it going? We had a huge storm in 2017 that flooded Coyote Creek, but I can't recall all the factors that caused it.
Great question. Last time I looked, they were on Los Gatos Creek and had been moving sort of up into the East Bay. And so I'm not sure how much further they've gone from there. The source population is in Lexington Reservoir up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And then they just kind of come cruising down into the bay, into San Jose, and then fan out and find as much water as they can. If you look on iNaturalist, which is like an app for observing different animals and plants, and you search for beavers, this year, I think there were 2 or 3 families in San Jose, and they all had babies, and people were out taking pictures of them. So you can see like these happy, cute little beaver families sitting on the bank of these just super urban channels. And it's really quite a fascinating image.
That's cool. Right on. Can beavers coexist with anadromous fish species, for example, steelhead?
Yes, they absolutely can coexist with the anadromous fish. They actually really benefit, the fish do, from living in these beaver ponds and these beaver affected systems. Anadromous fish, for those of you that are maybe not aware, are fish that go back and forth from the ocean into the freshwater system. So like salmon, a lot of trouts, things like that. When the fish are doing their migrations, they go have their babies up inland, and then those babies, they're like this big, itty bitty little things when they're born. And it's a tough life being a baby fish, especially when there's a lot of pressures both on the ecosystem and the waterways. Like we've really changed a lot of our waterways to not be great fish habitat, but also like predators, there's frogs, there's birds, there's all sorts of other stuff. When these baby fish can get into a beaver pond, they have access to a ton of in-stream wood, which is really good fish habitat, deep pools where they can't just get picked off by every bird, and food. There's like a ton of food. So these baby fish can basically hang out in a pond, not spend a bunch of their energy swimming against the current, eat a ton, get huge, and then go about their life cycle. They have no problem getting past beaver dams. I mean, most beaver dams are knee high to hip high on me, so maybe like up to 3 feet tall. And a lot of baby fish actually can swim straight through them. They're pretty permeable structures. But there's also all these canals the beavers are digging that connect the upstream to the downstream. So it's like, instead of driving straight into a roadblock, they just take the detour and go around. So yeah, they definitely coexist. They get along very well, and beavers don't eat them.
And beavers don't eat them. That was one of the 3 fallacies, I think, that you talked about, which is that beavers do not eat fish. Yeah. That's one of them, right? Marissa Ishimatsu has a question. Have you had any luck with cooperation from CDFW on any of these habitat augmentation techniques, both for attracting beavers and augmenting beaver dams? And I'll piggyback on that and ask you to share your thoughts about the current funding that was just released in the state and the implications of that in terms of moving beavers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so CDFW, I would say as a whole, has been actually really good about beavers. As any agency, it's not just a monolith, it's a bunch of individuals who are all trying to do their best in their job. And like we had the California Beaver Summit a couple years ago now, a virtual symposium of people talking about beavers in this state. And I think we had 200 CDFW employees attended. So there's a lot of interest in learning more about beavers and what they're doing. And there are CDFW reps all over the state who are working really closely with watershed councils and scientists and land managers to do this sort of beaver-based restoration, especially actually in the salmon habitat, because that's a really high priority for the state, is protecting them. We've not had the best successes with some other restoration styles. And so beavers are like, well, maybe this could help. And all the data coming out of it says like, yeah, this is for sure helping. The new funding is that CDFW is establishing a beaver-based restoration unit. It's going to have 5 full-time beaver people, beaver scientists, I guess, in it, working to help support the beavers that we have in this state. California still has about 2,000-ish beavers lethally managed every year, which feels a little high considering we are nowhere near our historic population. And most of these lethal management situations probably could have been averted if we invested more in coexistence. So they're going to be helping manage some of that, try to bring that number down, but then also make it allowed to do a relocation again. So to take a beaver that's on the equivalent of beaver death row, like it is living on private land, and that landowner is absolutely not going to collaborate with that beaver. They say, no, take it away. Instead of killing it, you would then have the option to move it and give it another shot somewhere else. And sort of depending on the circumstances of that conflict and of the beaver itself, maybe you just move it somewhere else in the watershed. So it's not a huge move. And you say, good luck, beaver. But maybe that beaver is part of a larger group of beavers that's being moved into a completely new watershed that has not had beavers in 200 years and is ready to have them sort of reintroduced into that landscape. There's so much up in the air about how this program is going to be run. But what's really cool is it's opened the door to think about beavers and partner with them more seriously in this state.
Wow.
Right on.
Here's another one from Thomas Dayton. I've been concerned about posting beaver observations on iNaturalist due to trappers being able to use that info to trap the beavers. What are the current laws in regards to trapping beavers? Does CDFW attempt to limit the number of beavers that can be trapped each year?
Yep, beavers have to have a permit to be trapped. Any trapping outside of the permit process is not allowed. You cannot trap them for fur, you cannot trap them recreationally. So at least in California, I find that posting iNaturalist observations is pretty safe. CDFW is, depending on where you're in, like some CDFW regions issue a lot of permits for beaver depredation or lethal management, and some issue very few. So actually in Southern California, almost no permits get issued. So if you see beavers down here, that's mostly just super valuable data to know where they are and where they aren't. Most people don't mess with them. I think partially because the water situation down here is so brutal that you see beavers and you're like, wow, gotta protect that, even if you're not necessarily like a beaver fan. So I think it's pretty safe. Other states definitely don't have that much protection. So like in Oregon, private landowners can kill beavers without a permit, and they don't even have to report that they did it. And so when you are photographing beavers up in Oregon, just be a little more careful about posting those. There is a setting, I believe you can do an iNaturalist that's like fuzz out the location, don't make it perfect on the map where it is. And that's a great option if you're nervous about it.
Oh, interesting. So I was hoping we could talk a little bit more about your research. Like, do you have are you tracking like 100 beaver ponds right now? And what are you learning about the time scale of change to the ecosystem that they're in?
Yeah, order of magnitude larger. I'm looking at thousands of ponds at any given time. A lot of what I do is remote sensing. So I'm using satellites, aerial imagery, drones to observe these at the landscape scale. And because beavers are so industrious, like one fire scar that I'm looking in might contain anywhere from 100 to 1,000 beaver ponds. And so then if I'm looking at 5 fires, that's like up to 5,000 ponds just for that study.
Wow.
Which is great. And I think it's amazing to see just like the incredible diversity of beaver damming and ponding and all of their impacts on the landscape. But really what I'm trying to understand is as we continue to see these disturbances and as a lot of these disturbances get more intense, like instead of normal wildfires, we're seeing mega fires. And instead of normal droughts, we're seeing mega droughts. And instead of normal floods, we're seeing mega floods.
Right.
And like just trying to figure out, okay, this is obviously getting worse right now. There's data showing that beavers were really good at dealing with floods in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. Like, is that still happening? We knew that they were good at dealing with fires all the way back into the 1800s. But what about today, where our fires are not just like little brush fires that come through naturally or like a good fire in the forest? They're these explosive like fire tornadoes. Like at some point the fire is too much for the beavers. And I haven't found what that point is, which is great from like a hopeful perspective. But it's also important to know like when and where is this the most effective? And when and where should we really be going all in on supporting the beavers or bringing back the beavers? Because one pond could be the difference between, you know, a completely parched landscape or a thriving biodiverse ecosystem. And that's a combination of all this remote sensing work I'm doing, looking at how healthy the plants are, looking at how wet the soil is, looking at where there even are beavers, but then also a lot of modeling. So using that data to inform fire behavior models or beaver occupancy models or drought effect models, and just trying to understand better like the systems scale effect of beavers.
Wow.
All right, well, now we get to the Kristen's Crazy Ideas segment, which is Emily's Crazy Ideas. So what you got for a crazy idea, Emily?
So I think my wildest idea about beavers, I would love to see beavers be seriously valued in the way that a lot of other things we do for environmentalism are. And by that, I mean with dollars. So I would love there to be like a program in the IRS or the USDA or whichever big government agency deals with tax credits to say, if you have a beaver on your property and you're letting it be a beaver and do its thing, you get like $1,000 a year or something to just encourage people to take a hands-off approach. Because I mean, one, you get paid for doing nothing. Like let the beaver be on your land and you get dollars. Amazing. But two, I think for a lot of people, there's just this like little critical momentum that they have to reach where like the beaver moves in and it's alarming because this like huge pond rat shows up and starts just changing everything. It's like the landscaper comes to your yard that you didn't invite and they just completely redo everything and you don't get an input. That's like pretty stressful for a lot of people, but like the landscaper, they are the smart person there. Like they know what they're doing and you got to trust them, but it's hard for people to do that when it's a big rodent and not another person. So I think if you just like bait them into waiting for a year, like give the beavers a year, here's $1,000, then we would see a lot more people getting those benefits and being like, wow, you know, yeah, there was this really chaotic construction phase, but now I can sit on my back porch and go bird watching with my morning coffee because there's just so much habitat and it's amazing. So yeah, I don't know, Beaver IRS division, whatever that would be.
Beaver rebates.
Beaver rebates, I love it.
That Inflation Reduction Act should have had some beaver credits in there.
Right? Seriously.
Wonderful. Well, that brings an end to our segments. So now we just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Fairfax, for joining us and teaching us. And here's her email address if you would like to get in touch with her, and also her website is also on the page. So Emily.
And before we leave, Kristen, one more thing. Emily, can you give a shout out to the organization that we were talking about for the process-based restoration, the PBR, for the folks that are, I know there's some folks on the call who are not from California, but I think there's quite a few who are. So in case they're not aware of this, I'd like them to be aware.
Yeah, so in California, we just recently launched, it's called the Cal PBR Network. So it's for the California Process-Based Restoration Network. And it's a bunch of people that work in this style of restoration with beavers, but then also with like making log jams and doing beaver mimicry and things like that. And we've sort of split ourselves up into groups that are specialized in funding. So how do you get dollars to do this kind of work? Groups that are specialized in permitting. How do you actually get the paperwork in order to do this work? I'm the lead on the research team. So like, how do you get the data to support your grant applications to do this kind of work? So tons of resources. There's a website for it. We also have events. There's one at the end of this month where you learn to build beaver dam analogs. I'm not sure if it's full yet or not, but worth checking out if that's something that's of interest to you.
The website is calpbr.org, in case you're interested in that. And there's a news and events tab on there as well, and you can join. And I'm guessing there's people on this call who probably are already a part of that, but yeah, I just wanted to give that information out for folks.
Thanks, Nancy. That's really important. Thank you.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Emily. We really appreciate your time. And just to end our little half hour here, we always like to highlight new features on the platform. And one of our favorite new features is the photo point export. I don't know if Marissa's still on the line, but this might work exactly right for you, Marissa. It's a beautifully designed export for pre and post photos, and you can utilize more than one pre and post. Basically, you can utilize it for a sequence of photos as well. So that's very cool. And then also you can now import your own answer choices from Excel. So that's awesome. Bigger answer choice lists, you pop them into Excel and you go ahead and import them. So that's it for today. You got anything else, Nancy? Oh, the poll. We got to do the poll.
Let's do the poll. And while Kristen's bringing that up, if there's anybody on the call who's not a WildNote customer who's interested in learning more about the platform, feel free to reach out to me directly, Nancy@wildnoteapp.com. And I know our chat didn't work today, or I would have thrown that in chat. I'm not sure what's happening, why that's turned off, but Nancy@wildnotapp.com. Be happy to take you on a tour of the product. Don Cunningham also posted a link. And Don, I'm going to that link right now. It's a Natural Resources Conservation Service link. And it's called the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. And
She's raising her hand. We can allow her to talk about it.
that'd be great, actually. Let's do that for the folks that are on the call.
Right. I think I can. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, she's in. Don's in. She's muted.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I just posted a link, another program for landowners to obtain a conservation easement for their lands that are potentially occupied by beavers. So they could possibly get a compensation. So it's just something if you can always recommend to them to apply for.
Kristen, maybe
the
you throw
USDA.
that link in the slide real quick.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to put it in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, the chat is not working for everybody right now. So
Okay. But, oh, people can't see it in the Q&A, huh?
no, the Q&A is for panelists and hosts only.
Oh, well, heck.
The link is to, there we go, ncrs.usda.gov. And it probably, what would be the search terms for that?
Agricultural Conservation Easement Program.
Okay. All right. That's cool. That's great. Thank you for giving us that
Sure.
additional information.
$1,000 thing. I mean, you could look into it a little more if people are interested.
Right on. Yeah, it's great.
Easement.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah,
All right. So the polls, we got 89% positive feelings about beavers and 11% neutral. So we got no beaver haters on the call. I don't think they would say it if they.
Well, the goal would be that to turn their mind around at the end of this. Right?
And then we did have 67% of our audience are involved in restoration work. So
that's great.
We really, gosh, we'd love to hear if this is, if this will affect your work and will improve it in any way. And that's our goal with these. So thanks for being here today, Emily. And thank you for everyone who's joined us, and have a great rest of your week and stay cool.
Right on. Thanks so much. Thank you, Emily. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.